Hello. Been a while. About a week. Well, over a week. Anyways. There are a lot of things that are under speculation that I've kind of noticed with the whole social media thing, as well as things that were very big last year and then all of a sudden just and one of those things happens to actually be Space Force. I'm actually surprised that a lot of people kind of forget about that. If not, why they start talking less about it. It's a very, very interesting matter and topic. Me being a part of the United States Air Force, I can safely assume, as well as assure, as far as my knowledge extends, the Space Force is a legitimate thing. Now, that being said and done, the recruiting process for it is a lot different. And by being different by a lot, I mean legitimately it is completely different. The only way that I know of that you can legitimately be recruited into the Space Force is one of two, potentially three ways. One, through any military branch, mainly through the Air Force though, that is as far as my knowledge extends, or NASA. And those are legitimately, as far as my knowledge extends, the only ways that you can be recruited into the Space Force. And the reason being is because there's no recruiting office for the Space Force. You know, like, it's a problem of legitimacy. In addition to that, as far as I know, the Space Force is going to be kind of a all military branch thing. To touch light on some of the things that the Space Force is going to be is a lot. And by a lot, I mean it is going to be literally a lot. Basically, the Space Force is comprised, not compromised, of Air Force and Navy specifically. And the main reason behind the Air Force and the Navy being very specific candidates for the Air Force, not for Space Force, is because you have the issue and matter of, hey, you know, our spacecrafts are basically naval ships, except in space, which is the only real difference. Now, that being said and done, you know, the Army does fly, as well as the Marines. However, they don't have any land ships, but the Navy does. The Air Force is also, I mean, the thing about the Air Force is it's not all comprised of just people that fly. You know, you have literally all of the same career fields that are in the Air Force that you do with, say, the Marines or the Army or the Navy, except the only difference is Air Force is mainly air-based. You know, like the Marines, I don't know if the Marines do this or not, or the Navy does it or not, but literally in some of your training with the Air Force, I know for being an age mechanic, you actually have to learn how to take apart and put together a vehicle on a plane while it's flying. That's extremely risky. Now here's why. When you are on a plane, everything is constantly moving around to where you have no control. Alright? Now if you're in space, and let's say that you are in a naval spacecraft, basically that naval spacecraft is required to have a anti-gravity system, as well as a gravity system in place. So, you know, I mean, when you are in space, it legitimately has to be able to, I mean, you have to basically be able to walk around and work. Now, that's one of the many reasons as to why it's taken so long for the Space Force to even become a thing, because they're still trying to work around those kinks, as well as issues that they're having. Because the thing is, let's say that, you know, there is life outside of Earth and whatnot. I mean, we know that there very clearly is. Basically, you have to come to the conclusion of saying, hey, how is it that, we have all these little matters and all these little issues, yet, we have no clear indication as to whether or not it exists. And the thing is that you have to consider is this. The Space Force is comprised of mainly Air Force and Navy. Alright, so let's say that you were in the Navy. You need to be able to learn how to fly massive spacecrafts throughout space. But let's say you were to have to learn how to fly smaller spacecrafts and whatnot. You have to learn how to do it basically on anything. With the Air Force, the issue is that you have the matter of, hey, where's this going to go? Where's that going to go? You have to be strategic with the Air Force. The Navy, it isn't exactly strategic. So I'm going to give a bit of a history lesson, is when you were back, let's say you were in World War II, and World War I, when it came to the military, the individuals that would pilot planes were extremely young. And the main reason behind it is because your mind isn't fully developed. And since your mind isn't fully developed, you are more likely to take life risks on a constant basis. No matter what the situation or conditions, you're just more likely to do it. You're more prone to do it. Your mindset is more automatic to do it over anything. So let's say that you go through the Space Force, where you're able to get into the Space Force and whatnot. What you're going to have the issue is, you're going to have the issue of, hey, how do we refuel our spacecrafts while in space? It's a pretty tricky situation, because you literally have to come back to Earth in order to refuel. Now, one of the things that's another kink that we have to work out on is, when it comes to spacecrafts that are around Earth and why they are able to stay up there for so long, it's because they're stuck in Earth's gravity, or the very edge of Earth's gravity pull. So what you have is, the minute that it goes any farther, it goes out of Earth's gravity pull, and then it goes either into the moon's gravity pull or it goes into space. Space has no gravity. It has no pull. Space is just a vacuum, an empty vacuum, nonetheless. Yes, I realize I'm saying vacuum instead of vacuum. It's because I just prefer saying vacuum. It's the vacuum of space. Because the thing is, when you're going by vacuum, a vacuum physically sucks things in and traps it inside. Whereas space doesn't do that at all. It's actually the reverse. There is no gravity, there is no air, there's nothing that involves anything. It's just empty. There's nothing in it. Now, when it comes down to everything else, you have the matters and issues of, how am I going to get from point A to point B safely and whatnot, and, that's, again, another issue that, you're going to have. And one of the issues that you can do in this kind of synopsis is, let's say that you point out waypoint stations in space, and when you put those waypoint stations out in space, you have refueling stations. Now, the issue with that is it creates another issue. It needs to be refueled as well. So let's say you connect multiple spacecrafts to that one spacecraft. You're going to come across another issue. How is that one spacecraft going to pull all these other refueling spacecrafts with it? Because you also have to think it's going to take more fuel in order to get out to where it's required to be. Not only that, but it also has to be able to stop in that spot. So what's going to happen is, you're just going to have continuous situations that you're going to end up coming across that, you know, is a very big reason why Space Force is taking so long to break grounds. Another thing that I know of is basically a Spartan program. Now, this is somewhat of a speculated thing, and the reason behind it being a speculated thing is because of the Space Force. If you ever play Halo Reach or any of the Halo games, you have the whole thing and situation of, hey, you have the UNSC where there's the Spartan program where you have literal Spartans, whereas the military, our U.S. military, we have special ops programs where you have Task Force 141, Rangers, Navy SEALs. I don't know what Marines have. Probably Spec Ops, I don't know. Marines are idiots. No offense to anyone that is a Marine that is watching this. I really don't care. But, you know, I mean, I don't understand your guys' whole system. You guys are just doing 13 and a half weeks of vigorous training that I see no point in. Because it's literally just the same thing. The only thing, though, is, you know, I mean, you guys are more bronze than you are brains. And I don't mean that in any offensive way, but it's true. When it comes to the Air Force, we're more brains over bronze. And, you know, I mean, you can physically determine that by literally looking at somebody who's, say, Marines, you know, they're more physically built. Whereas somebody who's Air Force, they're more lean and slim. But they're also physically built. Navy, they're in between those. Army is, you know, you have to be slim, but you also have to be bulky. And that's the issue. With the Army versus every other branch, the Air Force, you don't have to be bulky. They want you to be physically fit, but they also don't want you to be too big, because if you're too big, then you're more of a target and you're more of a liability than somebody who's in the Marines. You know, I mean, I've come across 5 people in the Air Force that are like big, and by big I mean there's literally only one person that I've seen with a gut, and that's a beer gut. But everybody else, the other 4, have literally arms, just a bicep that is the size of my head. Now my head hat size is a size 7.5, and you know, if somebody has muscles or arms that are that big, no offense, but you should have gone into the Marines. Like, I mean, I get that if you're smart, you're smart. I get that if you went into a specific career field with the Air Force, that is the main reason why you went into that career field. But I don't understand why you would go and do what you're doing. Like, I don't understand it. Y'all are weird sometimes. Y'all do some really weird things. Another thing is, I have pet peeves. And one of my pet peeves is civilian living. Alright? I mean, I call them civvies only because you guys are civvies, as far as I'm concerned. But y'all are weird. I mean, literally when I was in BMT, all I heard was, you know, civvies do the weirdest things ever, you know. When I was in tech school, all I heard was, civvies do the weirdest things ever. Like, y'all civvies, like, if any of y'all have civvies in your family's weird. Like, I have met a grand total of 10 people out of like 100 people that have more than 3 siblings. Now keep in mind, I have a lot of siblings. I have so many, it's ridiculous. I have legitimately like 9 siblings that I'm legally adopted to. And then I have one of those adopted siblings is actually my biological sibling, and I have 3 other biological siblings. So I have 4 biological siblings, and then I have 4, but only 3? No, like five-ish adoptive, well, fostered siblings, but only 4 of them I really know. And that's because literally those 4 I grew up with. You know, I mean, they're all within the same time gap that I have. Same time, age frame, whatever you want to call it. Let's say that you have as many siblings as I do. You're screwed. No, I mean, basically, in my synopsis, I have essentially 19 siblings. Well, 18 more accurately, but, you know, I mean, again, it's still the matter of how many siblings I have. But I come from an all-military family, okay? So, well, not an all-military family. Well, I don't know. My mom did serve in the military, but my father did. And my uncles. All except for one of them. And my grandfather. And my biological grandfather. But yeah. All basically military. I'm also the first child in my adoptive father's family to actually ever serve in the military. I think to even enlist. Now, my cousins from all of my uncles that have had kids, they've legitimately enlisted and went into the military, which is ridiculous. Because people look at us and they're just like, hey, how many people you got in your family that serve in the military? And it's just like, I don't know, a lot. I have met a total of, now keep in mind, out of the 100 people that I'm saying that I know from the military, I've only met one person with the same last name as me. I asked somebody that is an officer that has literally met an insane amount of people because they have been a MTI, which is a military training instructor for 4 years. And out of those 4 years, when I asked him, he said, I've met a grand total of 3 McAfees out of all of it. Like, out of 4 of his years of being an MTI, which you're only allowed to be an MTI for 4 years, he's only met 3 McAfees. And one of them being me. Another one being the individual that I met. And then another one being when he first started out. Now, that being said and done, it means he doesn't get around. But at the same time, he does. Because the issue that you have is with a name as common as McAfee, you have the issue of not all of them are built for the military. I have a brother who tested for the military, and he got a total of a 3 on the ASVAB. I don't know how you can get a 3 on the ASVAB. It's literally impossible. If you spell your name right on the ASVAB, you automatically get like 10 points. Which clearly means he had to spell his name wrong. And if you spell your name wrong, you're screwed. Because literally the issue is that you have the matter of the ASVAB. Now, you could take an officer's training test. Every branch calls it differently. The Air Force, I know for a fact, calls it the AFOQT. The Army may just call it the AOQT because it's Army Qualified Officers Qualified Test. The Air Force's, it would be most likely, I mean, I already know what the Air Force's is. It's AFOQT, which is Air Force Officers Qualified Training Test. The Marines, I'm assuming, is going to be MOQT, Marines Officers Qualified Training Test. And I'd assume that the Navy is the same thing, just NOQT, as well as the Coast Guard. And the issue that you have is you have this massive issue where it's just like, okay, well, what do we do here? What do we do there? How do we go about this whole situation? And the situation that you have, that arises is you have the common basic fundamentals. The military as a whole is a significant power. I know that a lot of people do not support Trump, and if this offends any of you, I'm sorry, I don't really care. I support Trump 100%. As a matter of fact, I am literally voting for him in the next candidate election. You know why? Because he's done so much for this country that it is literally ridiculous how anybody can say, I'm going to vote for somebody that isn't Trump, because Trump hasn't done anything for the country. You know what Trump has done for the country, though? He created the Space Force. You know what he's also done for the military? It's unbelievable. Literally, the Air Force's pay before I started enlisting, before he was even president, is the Air Force's pay, I believe it was like $1,300 for Airman Basics. Total. The Airman Basics didn't even get BAH. Like, you had to be married in order to get BAH, whereas in the Air Force, now it doesn't matter. You know, you go into basic, you know, I mean, there's a $300 pay increase on every single person. So you have $1,600 for an Airman Basic. For an E2, you have like $1,900, and then for what is it? Airman First Class, you have 2,200, and that's before BAH. So let's say you bring in BAH into the whole evaluation. What you have now is you have literally an additional $1,000 in your paycheck as a single person. Now let's say that you're married, you get an additional $500 on top of that. Now, I'm not trying to convince anybody to go with the Air Force here. I mean, I am, but you know, at the same time, I'm not. I'm 100% biased, and I accept that I'm biased, and I love that I'm biased. But what you have is you have the insufficient matter of how do I go from this branch to this branch. The Air Force offers a program that's called Blue to Green. It's going from Air Force to Army. The Army has the reverse. It's where you go, I believe it, I could be horribly wrong. I'm assuming that's the reverse, where it's green to blue. Where, you know, I mean, it's literally Army to Air Force. And I believe that the Navy actually has a program. It's called White to Blue. Because the Navy wears white dress uniforms. And, you know, I mean, you basically have the situation of, hey, what am I going to do here? You know, I mean, I believe that the Marines would be black to blue. I believe that's right. And, you know, I mean, the Marines, they have just a black trench coat over their regular shirt. Over a white shirt. The Air Force, their blues are literally all blues. Like, there's nothing that isn't blue on their uniform. With the Army, what you have is you have the matter of, you have the blue pants with the red stripe and a white shirt with a black jacket. No, the Marines have brown shirts underneath their black suit jacket. And, you know, I mean, you come into the whole matter of the issue, it's irrelevant. But, you know, at the same time, you have the issue of, you know, I mean, for the most part, when it comes to me, that I've seen on uniforms, the Air Force is the only one that actually does, not patches, but, well, basically patches, for your uniforms. You know, I mean, you have, you know, and they call them ribbons, which, you know, I mean, they literally are ribbons, but I believe that some branches actually only do medals. I could be horribly wrong about that. I'm not fairly certain. However, I could be wrong. I'm not sure I'm wrong. I'm not sure I'm right. I'm gonna have to look into that now, because now I feel like I'm an idiot talking about what the military has and what it doesn't have. But college funding. So college funding for the military is unbelievable. I think now it's being set up to where, I mean, when I was in BMT, you know, I mean, it still applies to people that serve and sign their papers on that day. And the issue that you have is okay, let's say you serve in the United States Air Force. Here's this issue, here's that issue. The issues that you have is very simple. Very, very simple. Okay, the BMT regulations for my training was you had a minimum of $76,000 that you had funded to you per year on a yearly basis, no matter what the college was, whether it was private, state college, or community college. It didn't matter. But now I believe it does. I know when I was going to college, well, I'm still in college, but when I started, they're just like, well, you know, these regulations are changing, and what's going to happen is, you know, you have certain funding. If you go with the Post 9/11, it covers everything. If you go with the Montgomery GI Bill, it covers everything. However, if you're going to go to a community college, you have to forfeit your Montgomery GI Bill. But if you go to a private institute college, they only cover up to a certain amount. So if you go to VU, I believe it's like, I think the amount per semester is $25,000, because there's only 2 semesters per year, and it's like $25,000. And the Air Force, or any military branch, really only covers about $12,000. So you have to pay $13,000 out of your own pocket per semester, which is utterly ridiculous. I wouldn't pay $13,000 for anything, unless it's a new vehicle or a house, I guess. But that's getting off track. My point is, if you see yourself being able to go into the military and serve in the military, do so. If you're already working out on your body, just join. You get a free gym membership no matter where you go. I've already gone to the Y. I've asked them about it. The military gets a free gym membership. Anytime Fitness, they give military free memberships like there's no tomorrow, because they're serving the country. You know, it's $40 for a gym membership. You know, I mean, they could knock off $20, knock it off 50%. It's not going to really change anything. Every branch is different. Every place you go to is different. Some places give you 25% discount. Some places give you 50% discount. Some places that I know, it varies on where you're at. San Antonio, Texas offers 75% off on certain things. And the reason behind it is because literally you're just coming out of BMT 9 times out of 10, or tech school, and you don't have any money. Another thing is, you want to make sure that you're already financially set before going into the military. Because if you're not, the issue that you're going to have is you're going to have no money. Coming into tech school, coming out of tech school, going into BMT, coming out of BMT, going to your first duty station, if you're married, if there's a God, help you. Legitimately. Because the issue that you're going to have is the military really screws with your finances. I know for myself, they screwed with my finances. People that I know, they screwed with their finances. Just make sure that you're financially set before you even go into the military. Make sure that you know what you're doing before you do it. And make sure, for the love of God, that you legitimately want to be a part of the military in general. I knew from when I was 5 years old that I wanted to serve in the United States Air Force. I just did. And literally on my 19th birthday, I was officially enlisted into the United States Air Force. My 19th birthday was nearly 2 years ago now. And I was wrongfully terminated, but that matter got corrected and I'm back in. And I'm literally leaving for California in a couple weeks for the military. So again, if you know what you want to do, make sure that you do it and you do it right. Because the military can really screw you over, or they can be your best friend. As long as you're in the military and as long as you keep serving, they're going to keep being your best friend. Their standard pay increase on a yearly basis is 1%. A whopping 1%. That is really sad and pathetic. Because let's say that you're making $3,000, literally 1% of $3,000, I think is like $30, if I'm recalling correctly. It's utterly ridiculous. Now 30,000 is 300. Don't ask me why, I don't know. It's really sad how much of an increase we get on a year-to-year basis, because every other place that you go to, literally if it comes to a raise, you get an hourly pay rate raise, not a salary rate pay raise. You know, I mean, when people ask me, not ask me, but thank me for my service, you know, I mean, my automatic instinct is, don't thank me for my service, because I haven't done anything for the country. All I did was enlist. All I did was raise my hand and basically, you know, I mean, essentially, you know, I got married to the military. You know, I said I do. You know, I mean, I solemnly swore my life to the military, and I believe that in any and all cases, you know, if you're gonna serve in the military, do it for the rest of your life, not just do it to get a retirement paycheck. You know, I mean, some people do, which is fine. Some people just serve just because they wanted to go to college for free, because they know that they couldn't afford it. For myself, I knew that I couldn't afford college without the military, because I couldn't. I legitimately could not get into college without the military. And it's sad to say, but it's 100% true. So just make sure that you really, really know what you want to do before you go and do it. I think it's that simple.